99.1 FM CKXS Saturday morning continues here. Saturday mornings are all about real estate around here, and we like that because Saturday, I think, is a day that a lot of people look around, kind of kick some tires a little bit when it comes to housing around the Chatham-Kent area, and that's why we bring in Riverside Realty to talk about real estate. And Pete Allaer is the broker of record at Riverside Realty now. And would you say that is Saturday kind of a tire-kicking day for people?
Yeah, I think we get a lot of people. A lot of people are out and about Saturdays, and and although I mean, nowadays most people are on their phone on Realtor.ca, and but they might find something on Realtor.ca and say, okay, you know what, Saturday morning, let's go for a ride and check it out.
Mm-hmm. And it's pretty simple now. I mean, through your website, you can see all your listings there, probably smart for somebody just to say, hey, I'm looking for houses. Give me the list of houses. Do you print them off and just hand them to them, or do you text them?
I mean, it quite often now it's more texting, emails,
and then a link that they can just hit.
Yeah, and then go to a link, go to our website, go to a link. I mean, we all have systems where if someone's looking for a house, they'll reach out to one of our team members that they're working with, and then we have auto emails that something comes up, boom, you get an email on exactly the criteria you want. Works great because they get, as soon as it gets listed, doesn't matter who lists it,
right?
Bang, they get the email right away. And so anymore, the olden days of people walking in saying, oh, do you have a magazine with all the lists? We might get a couple times a year someone does that, but generally speaking, most people now are on their phone, on Realtor.ca, on the computer, on the websites, the public today is very, very well versed on what's for sale, and there's so much on the internet. They're an educated public, and they see, we have 360 virtual walkthroughs now.
Right,
we provide that. It's unbelievable, really, when you think about all the stuff we can do online. Where back 10, 15 years ago, you'd wait for the courier press, and in the back, you'd be like, that really, honestly, that's pretty, it doesn't happen anymore.
No, it has evolved. Plus, you're on radio.
Well, yeah. Now that we're on radio,
about evolving. Hey, I want to talk about first-time buyers because I think we got a lot of people out there that are trying to get into the market of no longer renting and buying their first house, and I think people would be surprised how easy it is to get it going, right? To leave being a renter to being an owner.
Yeah, for sure. And this is something I one of the topics I was hoping to talk about because, I just want to run through everything there is to do with first-time buyers. So the first thing is, I guess, let's say before you start looking for a house, or maybe you reach out to a realtor saying, I'm thinking of buying, this is my criteria. Then what we'll do is we'll set you up on a search engine that will provide you with new listings that fall into your criteria. And usually I just use dollar amounts because I like to keep the window fairly wide. Just because how search engines work, if you get one word wrong, you don't receive that listing.
Right,
so I get it fairly wide. So let's say somebody says, I want to buy something up to $200,000. I set them up, away they go. Now what I usually do with those first-time buyers is I like to explain to them, okay, these are the things you need to think about. So the first thing is down payment. So and getting pre-approved, right? We talked to that on other shows about getting your ducks in a row. But what I want to tell first-time buyers here is a lot of them don't realize some of these things. So the minimum down payment for a first-time buyer today, because CMHC has talked about possibly changing the rules, but as of today, is 5% down.
Which is normally 10, right?
Yeah, so 10% would be a second-time buyer can get a CMHC mortgage, and CMHC mortgages are what they call high-ratio, guaranteed by the government mortgages. So if you're a first-time buyer, you can go in with 5% down, which is great to an extent. The problem you have with the lower the down payment, not everyone knows this. CMHC has a premium you have to pay. And it's almost like an insurance premium. It's a one-time deal, and it's a percentage, of what your mortgage is. So at a 5% down, their premium is 4%. In other words, if you're buying a $100,000 house, putting 5% down, your mortgage is actually $104,000 minus the $5,000. So technically, you're only putting 1% down on that house, right? So not very many first-time buyers understand that. Matter of fact, 90% of them that I tell are like, "Oh, really?"
Right. I did not know that.
No. So there's a 4%. So the way the structure works is if you're putting 5% down,
Yep.
your premium for CMHC is 4%.
Yeah.
If you're putting 10% down, it's 3.1%. If you're putting 15% down, it's 2.8, and then up to 20 is 2.4. Once you get to 20%,
right,
you no longer need CMHC. So, I mean,
but 20% is a big nut to crack. If
it is, right? Especially first-time buyers.
Yeah.
But I do, encourage people to, just look at all the numbers. I mean, I always tell people.
And that's what you guys do, that, right? I mean, you break it down for them, show them, hey, here's what it's going to look like.
Yeah. So I mean, I would say I would still encourage someone if they're saying, well, I want to buy a house, but I just have 5% down. Okay. Because the $4,000 that you pay, say $100,000, the $4,000 that you're paying is spread over the whole term of your mortgage. So, I mean, it's not adding that much to your monthly payment, but you just, in this business, I always say everybody needs to go in with their eyes wide open and see exactly what their fees are. The other thing that I always tell people is, so that's the CMHC.
Yep.
I mean, if you're fortunate enough to have 20% down, that's awesome because there is no fee then, right? So you just go to the bank and you get 20%, 80% mortgage. It's pretty clean and easy and simple. The other thing that you need to remember is additional costs, right? So you got legal fees. Mm-hmm. The nice part about first-time buyers is the land transfer tax is waived. So if you have, let's say, on a $100,000 house, your land transfer tax is say $1,000. It's a little less than that, but it's waived, right? So you don't have to pay that. So it's nice if you're a first-time buyer and you're buying an expensive home, you save quite a bit of money. But you still have legal fees, which probably range from maybe on a lower priced house might be, $1,000, $1,200 or so, and then you have some disbursements, and they could be up to $2,500 depending on the expense, the cost of your house. But again, I encourage people, first time buyers, to reach out to lawyers like we have here on our show, to just ask them, what are my fees going to be again, so they know, that they can prepare. The other little costs that people don't think about are setting up your utilities. If it's the first time you've had utilities, if you want to set up an account, quite often they want a deposit. And what they normally do is they'll say, well, what's the address? And then the utility companies will look at what was the average bills for that property before.
Right.
And let's say the hydro bill was average $200. They'll say, well, we want an $800 deposit, let's say. The way you can avoid that is do pre-authorized payment.
Oh.
If you set up your utilities and you do pre-authorized payments,
good tip.
There's no deposit, right? Because they know the money's coming out every month. So that's a little trick that you don't, again, if you're buying your first home,
it all adds up.
Like $800 here, $1,000 there, and next thing you know, you got, $3 or $4 extra.
One other thing though, they don't pay you as a first-time buyer, right?
No.
The person selling the house is paying you. So you don't have a fee to the real estate agent, even though I've reached out to you and called up, Riverside Realty and said, hey, I'm looking at buying a house. I like a realtor to help me do that.
Yeah, exactly. No,
you do all the
buyers, the buyers never pay. The sellers, when they sell the house, the commission comes off the selling side. We have a form called the buyer's rep agreement that we have to have for our records, and we do that, with buyers. And I always say, you've just hired me as your agent, but you're not, you don't have to pay me. I mean, it's the only thing in life you get to hire someone and someone else pays.
Just so you know, Pete, we're charging you for the radio time that you get on the Riverside Realty show here, all right?
Yeah, exactly. and then the last one item I wanted to mention is moving costs. Sometimes it can be really, really cheap.
Yeah.
Other times it could be expensive, right? So those are another thing that you just have to think about, right? So if you have a bunch of friends or whatever and you can do it, it could be very cheap. If all of a sudden you're moving, who knows, let's say you're moving from London to here, well, it could be more expensive. So those are just a few of the things that as a first-time buyer, And again, I like to go through these things just so they're going in with their eyes wide open, that there's no surprises in the end.
Good. All right. Great information today. He's Pete Allaer from Riverside Realty. For any questions when it comes to real estate, reach out to them, give them a call, check them out online. And coming up here in just a little bit, we'll hear another one of our segments for our real estate show. And then coming up in a little bit, if you've got a question for us, feel free to send it to us. Text it at 437-9991, or you can call with a question and we'll take care of that for you. And hopefully we can get an answer to some of those questions coming up with Pete Allaer in just a few moments here at 99.1 FM CKXS. Back once again with the Riverside Realty Show, and today we took a few opportunities for people to ask questions in regards to Pete Allaer and maybe some things you can help people with when it comes to real estate.
All right.
Are you ready?
Sure.
So this is an interesting question. Currently in CK, if you are a farmer, how many houses are you required to own before you can sever a property as residential? That's an interesting question.
Yes. So the way they're doing the severance, it's called excess dwelling. That's how the severance will happen. So you have to have one primary residence where you're at.
Right.
So once you have one primary residence, so the farmer lives in a house
Yep.
in Chatham, Kent, then the next one becomes excess dwelling. And that's how you can sever it. Now, there are rules around the severance. There's size restrictions on what's left.
Right.
So, let's say if you have a 25-acre farm, I don't believe they would allow you to sever a house off of a 25, but I believe in Chatham, Kent, it's 50. So if you have a 50-acre farm, you are allowed to sever off, I think in Lambton it's now 100 acres. It has to be 100 acres in order to sever a house off. But in Chatham, Kent, and then there's also minimum size requirements for what you're severing. They used to make you tear barns and buildings down, like if it was a barn, like a cattle barn.
Right.
They used to make you tear those down. I don't know if they still do that, but there's definitely are rules around, what you can do when you go to sever. There's obviously cost involved. I think the cost is around $5,000 or $6,000 at least, because you have to do surveys of the properties, and you have to do, if it's septic systems, you have to do septic system inspections and prove that the septic is okay.
Yep.
If it's not, you have to put in a new septic. So there are rules around it, but the quick answer is basically one house. The second one becomes excess dwelling.
Okay. And who's the best person to talk to about that? Your real estate agent, your lawyer, a little bit of both?
Honestly, there's probably not a lot of real estate agents that know this. The reason I know this is because I come from the farm and I have a lot of farm experience.
Still a farmer.
And I've done it myself on our farm before. I would say more municipality, like planning.
Right.
I'd say municipality planning and or maybe zoning. That's who you should probably start with, because they'll give you a list of what you have to do to move forward with that. Now, you can do it yourself. Some people will hire a lawyer to do it. I've done it myself for our farm. I've done it 2 or 3 times, and it's like everything. It's a bit cumbersome, but you can get through it.
Who's it supposed to benefit? No, this is totally off topic now, because this is angry Greg coming out now. Who's it supposed to benefit by having all the rules and regulations on severing properties? To me, I think we have a housing problem, and the more opportunity there is for a farmer to sell a property, I don't care what size it is, to get that house into someone else's hands, that they can build the house up, put some money into the house, and isn't that a good thing? I think we should have less red tape on that.
Well, I'll tell you
we open up a big can of worms here for me.
Yeah, I'll tell you what the thinking behind it is, and I kind of understand it. So part of it is they don't want if you got a house out in the country, a lot of people are like, oh, I want to live in the country. I want to live in the country. And then there are people that were in town, had municipal water, had sewers.
Okay.
And then they go out in the country. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, gee, they just don't want to have a whole bunch of individual residential homes scattered all over, because it's costing municipality more money to service a person out in the country. So they just want to have some control over how many people do it. It's like, I get questions all the time saying, you're from the farm, farmers, call Joe Farmer and see if he'll sever an acre off so I can build a house. Mm-hmm. there's no way they'll do that, because the municipality doesn't want to have all kinds of residential properties scattered all over the municipality that now they have to like service, and you know what I mean? It's just going to cost a lot more money. So I get where they're going with having some control over, who can do what and how and how you can do this.
I can see probably what would happen too, and this is the part that would protect the farmer, is you'll get some people that are urban that'll move in, and then they'll complain about the smell of putting manure out the next day because they don't like the smell. Like, what do you expect? You live in the country. I mean, you're going to have to deal with country stuff.
I mean, we've had it before where there's a person moved to the country, and it's great, right? I mean, it's awesome out there. But yeah, I mean, there's things go with it, right? So we had one time where it's wheat season. We pull in the wheat field. And I mean, we all know when you harvest wheat, there's a lot of dust. Pulling the wheat field to harvest, well, they're having a baptism in the backyard. And it was like, so like, and I mean, and I get both sides of it. Like, we're like, well, we're here with all this big equipment to harvest the field. And now the guy that lives in the little corner house that was severed whenever, he doesn't want us to combine the field. It's like, so you work with your neighbors, but those are the types of things that can come up, right?
Okay.
I mean, most people will understand. I mean, especially if they've been out there for a little while. But there are things that come to country properties, that come with country properties that again, eyes wide open. We talked about like that too. Like when I sell a lot of country properties, and I know a lot about farmland and all the rest. So I tell people, like, these are the things you got to think about. If you want to buy a country property, these are, if it's a well, this is what you got to think about. If it's a septic system, like, these are the things that come with it that you got to understand.
Good. Before we go, so hopefully that answered the question for the listener. Sorry, I got on a little tangent there. Listings. Let's talk about the listings that you might have for this week.
Yeah. So again, we seem to be going with the theme of the coming soon listings.
Yep.
I have we at Riverside have one coming up here. It's an awesome listing. I think it's a rare listing. It's the address is 29061 Blue Water Crescent. Not sure if you know where that is, Greg, Blue Water Crescent, but
the number is very close to mine.
So it's an awesome house. It's I'll say a sprawling rancher, because it's a big house, 2,500 plus square feet. It's got a huge, like 125-foot wide seawalled lot. I mean, there's really only one kind of drawback to the house that I can think of, but other than that, it's a great place.
The neighbors aren't so good. The one in particular that's right next door.
Yeah, there's some guy right next door. Yeah. I've been trying to avoid him when I go there. I look the other way and pull in the driveway.
It's a good spot. The water is blue. It's an amazing area. Very quiet street.
Oh yeah, it is so nice. I mean, the
best move I ever made. I'll tell you, we are so happy with that. And whenever I post pictures on social media where I live, people are constantly saying, "Where is that?"
Yeah,
and I say Wallaceburg, and
so
to do it.
If people don't know, it's Shiloh Park is right beside it here, and as you could probably figure this out already, but if you want to be Greg's neighbor, then this is the house to buy.
I think we just brought down the property value in a big way. I swear I am fairly quiet most of the time, and I leave early in the morning, and I kind of like creep out the driveway, just so you know. All right, and that's going to be listed this week?
It's coming up. It'll be coming up Wednesday or Thursday, so keep an eye out. Get on our realtor.ca, get on our website. And it's if you've been looking for a nice size house on the water, this one's going to be hard to beat. Very, very, very nice.
Does this mean I have to keep my lawn and my
garden? Please, a couple weeks of like cleanup around there, please. Like,
I'm trying to think what I can dress up as on the day you're showing it. I just might do that.
Yeah.
Who is this guy? All right, that's the Realty Show for this week, brought to you by Riverside Realty. For more information, reach out to one of their agents or contact them via email or telephone. Riverside riversiterealty.ca, I think. Is that your Riversite Realty?
Yeah, Riversite. We did this last time.
Google Riversite Realty.
It's riversite.com.
Got it.
Riversite.com.
Gotcha. He's Pete Allaer. Thanks a lot, Pete, for coming in today. We'll see you next week.
Okay. Thanks, Greg.